Hey, what's up, everyone? Red Crimson Gaming here. Do you remember in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct where people were concerned about the video chat looking choppy? Well, Nintendo explains why the video chat looks so choppy. The reason why the video frame looks so choppy on the Nintendo Switch 2 is because they wanted to save on resources. Remember, guys, the Nintendo Switch only has 12 gigabytes of RAM, which I think is definitely significantly more than the current Switch. But if Nintendo know they was going for AAA games on this system, they wanted to add video chat, party chat, group chat, or whatever they want to call it, they should have actually added more RAM. And it puzzles me why Nintendo just didn't go with 16 gigabytes of RAM or better. But we're here now. So basically, the Nintendo representative said that they wanted to save on resources because video chat, guys, believe it or not, eats up a lot of RAM, and we need the extra RAM for the games and multitasking. So that's why the video chat had a smaller blueprint, a smaller screen. And remember, guys, you can have up to, I believe, 4 video chat screens at a time, and believe it or not, that takes a hit on the resources of a Nintendo Switch. It eats up RAM, and we don't know how much more memory of RAM the games themselves take up. The bigger the games, the more resources are going to be taken up. So resources need to be reserved for system settings, multitasking, the games themselves, chat. All those come into play. So basically, it sounds like to me the Switch 2 is already memory starved, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, guys. Like I said, the RAM is broken up from different kinds of multitasking. So Nintendo had to make a smaller blueprint for the Nintendo Switch video chat, and that explains why it looks choppy and grainy. So they wanted everybody to share the same experience across the board, because we already know if you have a good camera and good internet, you're going to get the best results. So instead of an individual, say one person has good video quality and the other person has a bad video quality, Nintendo did not want that. They wanted everybody to have the same experience across the board, because you'd be jealous if your buddy had better connection than you and you had choppy connection. So if one person's going to have choppy connection, everybody should have choppy connection. If one person's going to have good connection, Nintendo would want everybody to have good connection across the board. So because of the limited 12 gigabytes of RAM in the Nintendo Switch, resources have to be saved for games and multitasking. So that is why the video chat looks like that. So I don't know if this news would stop people from buying the camera accessory or even using their own camera. Some people have 4K cameras, 1080p, 60 frames per second cameras. Now it has been confirmed that you can use your own camera peripheral if you do have one, but I don't know if you have a better camera, if the results will be a lot better than the standard camera accessory that Nintendo has selling alongside the Switch 2 at launch. So for those of you that was concerned about why the video chat look like that looks choppy, that's because Nintendo is trying to save on memory for multitasking and share it between the games, video chat, the group chat itself, and so forth. Because we don't know how much RAM the games themselves are taking up. 16 gigabytes of RAM used to be plenty on consoles, but now, as games are getting bigger and more resources are needed, more RAM is needed as well. So that's why from the get-go, I think Nintendo should have just went with a 16 gigabyte of memory, or close to 24 like the ROG Ally, where they wouldn't have to worry about this problem. But hey, I guess Nintendo had to cut costs somewhere so we can afford the system, because if it had 16 gigs of RAM or even 24 gigs of RAM, then as we know, the system would be a lot more higher than just $450. We're start talking 700 to 800 territory here. And speaking of resources, let's talk about the battery for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, a lot of people were disappointed because we're going to get 2 to 6 hours of battery time. Now, we don't know which games will actually give us 6 hours of playtime. I'm assuming the indie games, because indie games don't use a lot of resources and they're not power hungry like a AAA game would be. So a game like Cyberpunk, I see is getting 2 hours. And those are just a few examples that I would like to throw out there. And Nintendo also confirmed that they have a 20-watt battery in the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's an issue, guys. So we're getting less battery power than the Steam Deck OLED and the V2 red box model Nintendo Switch, and that's a bit disappointing. Maybe some AA games you may get more than 2 hours, but we'll see, guys. I don't know, but I see the hardcore AAA games, we're gonna get about 2 hours. Street Fighter 6 is definitely a AAA game, but that's a fighting game, so you may be able to squeeze a little bit more than just 2 hours out of that game. And if my memory serves me correct, guys, I think the original LCD Steam Deck had a 20-watt battery in there. Don't quote me on that. I would have to go ahead and Google that information, but I do know that the Switch OLED has about 40 watts of power, or 39. I believe it's 40. I'm not sure. And the Steam Deck OLED is optimized pretty well, battery efficient wise, and you get a lot of juice playing with the Switch OLED. So I think Nintendo should have never cheaped out on a battery. I think they should have at least matched what the Steam Deck has battery wise. Nintendo should have opted for a 40-watt battery instead of a 20-watt battery, because as it stands, the 20-watt-hour battery will give you 2 hours with AAA games. So if they had doubled up on that, we would have probably gotten 4 hours, which I could actually deal with and play my games comfortably without worrying about the game dying on me and seeing that red flashing battery life. So maybe in the future, we already know that Nintendo's going to come out with a mid-gen upgrade like they always do for their handhelds. Maybe 2-3 years from now, or even 4, we'll probably see a better, more efficient Nintendo Switch 2 with an OLED screen, a 40-watt battery, maybe more RAM, hopefully more RAM, where we can have smooth, clear video chat. But only time will tell, guys. But for now, we just have to enjoy this $450 machine that Nintendo has provided for us and hope that they give us a better upgrade 3 or 4 years down the line. Moving along here, let's get into some good news. Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders are selling out already despite calls to drop the price. So let's get into it here, guys. Last week, Nintendo Switch 2 Direct event became a little contentious as a console $450 price tag alongside the high cost of launch software resulted in many gamers demanding that Nintendo drop the price. However, the negative response to the Switch 2's price strategy doesn't appear to be impacting the upcoming console's pre-order numbers. While the US pre-orders have been delayed with President Trump's tariffs cited as a reason, in countries such as the UK, Switch 2 pre-orders have already gone live and sold out in minutes. Last week, UK retailers including Argos, Very, Currys, Game, and Amazon all began taking Switch 2 pre-orders, and it didn't take very long for eager Nintendo fans to snap up the available stock. While electronics specialist Currys only took pre-orders in store, the rest opted for an online pre-order process and are now sold out of the hybrid console. Amazon UK went for an invitation system, with lucky customers being notified of their selection starting from the last Thursday, April 3rd. At present, it's unclear if Amazon UK has sold through its allocation, but I can confirm I registered for an invite and haven't been notified. Fortunately, I managed to secure a Switch 2 Mario Kart bundle for $429 at Argos last week. The store seems to be similar in Nintendo's native Japan, with high interest levels in the Switch 2, forcing the company to issue an apology. After more than 5 days of My Nintendo Store malfunctions, presumable due to the site's server struggling to handle so many users looking to buy at once. This suggests that while the console's launch price and the $80 cost of the flagship launch game Mario Kart World follow-up exclusive Donkey Kong Bonanza will retail for a slightly more palatable $70, have dominated online conversations surrounding the Switch 2. Neither is enough to put off the prospective purchasers. Now, Switch 2 looks set to be set for success. Switch 2 pre-orders date in the US remains a mystery though. We'll have to wait a while longer to get a sense check on how the Nintendo Switch 2 will sell in America. While Switch 2 pre-orders were due to go live in the US this week on April 8th via the Nintendo Store, that date has been delayed indefinitely, with President Trump's tariffs confirmed to be the root cause in a statement issued to Tom's Guide. We've approached Nintendo to ask if these tariffs could result in the Switch 2's MSRP of $450, aka $500 for the Mario Kart World Bundle, increasing, and we're told that Nintendo has nothing further to share beyond what was in the company's initial statement. Considering the launch price has been met with a quite significant backlash, an increase would certainly be unwelcome and could result in softer pre-order numbers than expected. Though, if I were a betting man, I'd guess Switch 2 pre-orders will sell out similarly fast in the US as they have in other regions like the UK, while $449 represents a significant jump for the Nintendo Switch's $300 initial price. It's still cheaper than the PS5 and Xbox Series X, which launched in November 2020 for $500, but both have been on sale for cheaper since. If you're undeterred by the Nintendo Switch 2 launch price and are eager to lock in your pre-order as soon as possible, bookmark our Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order hub for the latest updates. The Switch 2 may be expensive, but it's still going to be among the most in-demand new tech items of 2025, even if it leaves your wallet stinging. And guys, I am not surprised at this. I've been telling the Switch 2 haters, I've been telling a buddy of mine who loves to complain, who loves to hate on Nintendo, that the high price is not going to stop people from wanting the Nintendo Switch 2. And as the article stated, the Switch 2 will be the most in-demand tech for 2025. People want this thing, guys, believe it or not. Coming off of the success of the Nintendo Switch, which was a great system, the best hybrid system and the best idea in the past 8 years, of course, is a no-brainer that people are going to want to jump on the Switch 2. People are just play hating on the Nintendo Switch, but in regardless of the high price of the games and the system, people want this thing, and it's sold out regardless. As expected, as I knew it would. I don't care if this thing costs $1,000. I'm still getting the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't care if the games are $80. I'm still getting the Switch 2. Now, yes, it's expensive. So instead of you buying 2-3 games at a time, as I said in my last video, it may boil down to a point where you may have to get one game at a time, and that's okay. That gives you enough time to focus on that game and finish it, trade it in, and move on to the next game. So I have no issues with the pricing whatsoever. So if you want to Switch 2, guys, go ahead and pre-order it and make sure you save your money. By the time the Switch 2 comes out in the blink of an eye, which is right around the corner, you'll be able to get the Switch 2 system, a game, and a controller, and call it a day. Or get a system, a controller, 2 games, or the system and 2 games. Just save your money, guys. You have 2 months to save your money, or should I say a month and a half to save your money. Some of you all ever wondered if The USB-C that's on the top of the Nintendo Switch has a video output. Well, I have bad news for you all. Nintendo confirmed the Switch 2's top USB-C port doesn't support video output. During a question and answer session last week, Switch 2 producer Koichi Kawamoto confirmed that although the console's additional USB-C port is compatible with accessories like cameras, it doesn't support video output, according to GNN News. The video output of Switch 2 is limited to the USB-C port at the bottom. The USB-C at the top cannot output images. Those hoping to use smaller dock alternatives with the Switch propped up on a stand are out of luck. Sorry guys, so it seems that the USB-C port that's on the top of the Switch 2 will not be used for video out, even though it accommodates cameras. So hey, it is what it is. So I have some more news on the C button that's on the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con. Get this, guys. Nintendo will charge you for using that C button on that Joy-Con. The C button on the Joy-Con, as we all know now, Nintendo has lifted that secret veil off. Allows you to access a chat-like hub. Basically, it's for chat, guys. And it's going to be free until I believe March of next year. Then after that, Nintendo will charge you to use the chat button. And it is what it is. Microsoft and Sony charges you to use their chat anyway with their PSN and Game Pass service. So it's pretty much the same thing that Nintendo is doing. I don't know why people are surprised at this, but yes, you heard it from me, guys. Nintendo's going to charge you for using that C button. It's going to be free for a year, I believe. That after a year, you will have to have Nintendo online subscription to use the chat function. For my last little bit of news concerning the Nintendo Switch, I have some more details on the infamous, most hated game key cards. Yes, I hate them just as much as you guys, but let's go ahead and get into it. You can borrow and resell Nintendo Switch 2 game key cards. This is pretty interesting. Nintendo confirms that Switch game key cards downloads aren't locked to a specific Nintendo account. Following the reveal of the Nintendo's new game key cards during its Nintendo Switch 2 event last week, we're finally getting more details about why they existed and how they can be used. Although they don't contain a physical copy of a game, Nintendo's Tetsuya Sasaki explained to GameSpot that game key cards aren't permanently tied to a specific Nintendo account. The games can be inserted and played on any Switch 2 console, allowing them to be borrowed, rented, and even resold. So key cards will start up on the console or system that it is slotted into, so it's not tied to an account or anything, said Sasaki. That behavior is different from the Switch games that Nintendo currently sells in retail locations, which features as a download code instead of a physical cartridge. Those codes can only be used a single time and are connected to a specific Nintendo account, preventing them from being resold at a later date. Game key cards automatically trigger a game download when inserted into a Switch 2 console. Once the game is downloaded and installed, an internet connection is only required when you launch the game for the first time, according to a support page on Nintendo's website. After the initial launch check, the game can be played without an internet connection as long as the game key cartridge is still inserted into the console. Guys, I'm really not liking that. That reminds me of the Steam Deck. When you purchase a game, before you even play the game, it has to do an online check. I hate that. I hate how Nintendo's going in this route, man. The game key cards are an unusual format that merges digital game downloads and physical cartridges without quite solving the downsides of either format. Either access is still required to download the games, and you still need the cartridges to play them. But as Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser explained to The Verge, the game key cards primarily benefit publishers, allowing them to sell physical copies of a game at retail locations that may exceed the 64 gigabyte capacity of regular Switch 2 game cartridges. So is Doug Bowser trying to say that the reason these game key cards exist, or at least one of the reasons why the game key card exists, is if a game is bigger than 64 gigabytes, so they'll put it as a download cartridge? So are they also trying to say that all publishers are going to use the 64 gigabyte cards? Because I believe Nintendo stated that the game key card, actually let me retrace. Let me take a step back, guys. Nintendo have stated that the new Switch 2 cartridges has faster transfer speed and more data capacity, meaning that they're 64 gig cartridges, and they're forcing developers to use this as standard carts, right? So if there's a game that's actually bigger than 64 gigabytes, I guess they're saying that they may not have a cartridge that's bigger than 64 gigabytes. That's the max they have. So if the game exceeds 64 gigabytes, then they'll have to use that download game key card, where it gives you a full download of the game. That's pretty interesting. But in one of my articles, or in an article that I've read, that surprisingly the Switch 2 games aren't going to be that big. The biggest game so far is Mario Kart World at 24 gigs. So basically the game data won't be as big as they won't be that much bigger than what the Switch games are now to download, if that makes any sense. But all this is confusing, guys. So from basically what I sum up with this article is that the 64 gigabyte cartridge for the Switch 2 is going to be standard, and developers are going to be forced to put all their games on a 64 gigabyte cartridge, and anything that exceeds over 64 gigabytes, then they'll have to use the game key card download. We're living in strange times, guys. So here's hoping that most AAA games can fit on that 64 gigabyte standard cartridge that Nintendo is using. And I'm pretty sure Nintendo could make a 120 gigabyte cartridge, which will probably cost more than the $80. I don't know. We're living in strange time, guys. But that's all the news I have for you guys today. If you're new to my channel, like and subscribe, man. I'll keep on bringing you game news, and it'll definitely help my channel out. So have a good one. I'll see you next time.